Some homes quietly steal your energy, while others seem to open doors you didn't know existed. The difference: it's not just decor, it's the hidden design of energy. If your house has these signs, you're not just lucky, you're aligned with success. Let me ask you something most people never consider. Is your home quietly supporting your future, or silently holding it back? You see, we spend years picking out tiles, furniture, paint, colors, chasing aesthetics that please the eye, but we forget to ask one deeper question. Does my space truly work for me? Does it welcome fortune, stability, and flow? Or is it subtly draining my momentum day by day? In this video, we're not talking about superstition. We're talking about design that speaks the language of energy, structure that either nurtures or blocks your path, signs you've likely walked past every single day without realizing their impact. Today, I'll walk you through the 7 most important indicators that reveal whether your home is helping you thrive or quietly keeping you stuck. If you ignore them, you may be unknowingly closing the door to luck, wealth, and peace. But if you recognize them, if you tune in and make small aligned shifts, you create a space that not only looks beautiful, but feels powerful. This is not about being rich. It's about understanding the unseen systems that make a home feel rich in energy, opportunity, and purpose. So stay with me. What you learn today may forever shift how you see your space and how you move through life. Section 1. The 7 signs of a wealth-attracting home. Number 1. A bright, open, and unobstructed main entrance. The way your home welcomes light is the way your life welcomes opportunity. That isn't poetic fluff. It's one of the simplest, most overlooked truths I've observed in more than 2 decades walking through homes across every type of neighborhood, from modest apartments to luxury estates. And what continues to surprise me isn't how often this detail is neglected. It's how quietly it reshapes someone's life without them even noticing. Let's slow down for a moment, not to analyze, but to feel. Think about the last time you walked into a home, one you'd never been in before, and within seconds, it just felt good. Calm, clear, open. You didn't know where the kitchen was or whether the furniture was expensive. But something in your body relaxed. Your breath moved easier. You felt welcomed without words. That's not decoration, that's design aligned with energy. And the very first point of contact, the mouth of that experience, is always the entrance. In Feng Shui, we don't just call it a doorway, we call it the mouth of qi, the opening where energy from the outside meets the internal world. If that transition is smooth, intentional, and bright, everything that follows inside flows more naturally. But when that entry point is blocked, dark, or chaotic, the house becomes like a body trying to breathe through a straw. You might be alive, but you're never fully nourished. In practical terms, what does that mean? It means the front entrance must be open, unobstructed, and filled with light. Not just natural light, but a sense of energetic invitation. Light is the first guest that should be allowed into your home each morning. When it's blocked, energy waits outside, and so do the opportunities meant for you. Too often, I see homes with the same repeated issue. Shoes stacked high like a barricade, overgrown bushes closing in from both sides, trash bins huddled near the walkway, or forgotten delivery boxes slouched in the corner. At first glance, they seem like small oversights. But small habits create strong signals, and what we unconsciously place at the door becomes a reflection of what we're unconsciously resisting. Here's the question that makes some clients pause. If your entrance looks rushed, ignored, or closed off, what part of your life is experiencing the same thing? Where are you trying to move forward, only to feel stuck without understanding why? In 80% of the homes I've reviewed where finances felt tight, slow, or confusing, I found one consistent physical trait. The entrance was congested. It didn't matter how elegant the decor was inside. It didn't matter if the kitchen had quartz counters or if the living room had high ceilings. When the energy can't even enter the space without resistance, how do you expect wealth to stay long enough to grow roots? This isn't superstition, it's simple observation. Energy works like airflow. When the current is smooth, it builds momentum. When blocked, it stagnates, pools, and turns heavy. And the truth is, most people don't even notice the blockage because they've seen it every day. What once was a temporary stack of things becomes invisible over time, until the results in life start reflecting that weight. Now pause and look inward. Is your front entrance truly open or just functional? There's a big difference between a door that opens and a space that invites. Some homes technically allow entry, but the energy stops cold the moment it crosses the threshold. It senses tension, clutter, or disconnection. And without judgment, we have to ask, how does that mirror your daily experience? Do new ideas come in easily or do they fizzle? Do relationships feel warm and welcoming or forced and strained? Because what's outside the front door isn't separate from what happens inside your life. And if you're wondering whether this really matters, whether these details actually shape real outcomes, then consider this. In homes where the entrance is clean, naturally lit, and softened by symmetry or intention, people tend to report better mornings, more productivity, fewer arguments, clearer thinking. Not because the entry is magical, but because the energy arriving at the space is allowed to settle instead of being bounced around or blocked. When sunlight spills across a clean mat or a breeze flows through a clear path, there's a subtle signal sent not just to the space, but to your subconscious. You are ready to receive, and sometimes the shift is as simple as moving a plant away from blocking the door, replacing a burned-out light bulb, or finally getting rid of the shoe pile you no longer see. Small decisions, yes. But energy responds not to size, but to clarity. And clarity begins with what greets the day. So here's a softer, quieter invitation. Instead of asking how to fix what's wrong in your life, what if you simply asked, how does my home greet life each morning? Does it welcome light or defend against it? Does it create flow or interrupt it? And from that awareness, something surprising happens. Your entrance stops being just an exterior feature. It becomes a mirror, a message, a mood-setting doorway that says far more about your alignment than any vision board ever could. You don't need more ambition. You need more space for good things to enter. And sometimes, that space begins with just a clear path and a little sunlight. Number 2, the air inside the house is always fresh, cool, and breathable. If the air feels stale, your luck may be too. That may sound exaggerated at first, but think about it. Not in theory, but in your body. Have you ever walked into a room where the windows hadn't been opened in days, where the air felt still, heavy, maybe even slightly damp? You didn't need to see clutter or mess to know something was off. You felt it before you even realized you were holding your breath. That reaction is not just physical, it's energetic. And in the same way your body knows when air is stagnant, so does your motivation, so does your clarity, so does your luck. We just explored how the entrance of your home sets the tone for what enters your life. But now that energy is inside, what does it do? Does it circulate with ease, nourishing the space like a breath through the lungs? Or does it get trapped in corners, slowed down by sealed windows and rooms that rarely move? Many people don't realize that the way energy flows inside their home mirrors the way ideas, opportunities, and even emotions move in their life. And the most direct, invisible medium of that flow is air. Energy rides on breath, When you inhale deeply, you bring life into your body. When your home breathes, it brings life into your path. But here's the hidden conflict. We seal our homes for comfort, protection, or even luxury. Climate control, sound insulation, peace and quiet. But we don't notice what gets locked out in the process. Or worse, what gets locked in. Closed windows, drawn curtains, constant air conditioning. While they may offer immediate convenience, over time they contribute to a slow accumulation of stale energy, dull emotion, and unspoken mental fog. And this isn't about ventilation systems or expensive purifiers. This is about the spiritual texture of air. Fresh, moving air carries clarity. Stale, trapped air breeds hesitation. The homes where people feel stuck in indecision, weighed down by procrastination, or lost in their own heads are often the same spaces where no one has opened a window in weeks. Coincidence or consequence? Here's where I gently ask you to pause and reflect, not to judge, but to observe. When was the last time air flowed freely through your space without machinery? When did you last feel a breeze move through your curtains or hear leaves rustle outside your window while you worked inside? If it's been a while, ask yourself, what else in your life has stopped flowing? I once consulted for a young couple in their early 30s. Both were bright, driven, and passionate, but somehow they felt stuck. No movement in their careers. Their home looked clean and organized, but when I walked in, something was missing. The air felt dense, not with emotion, but with silence. I asked how often they opened the windows. The wife smiled awkwardly. We haven't since last winter. That was 9 months ago. I didn't suggest a remodel or a grand change. Just one shift. Open the windows for 15 minutes every morning. Let air flow in and out, just like the body breathes. 3 months later, she got promoted. He started sleeping better. They both said the house felt different, even though they hadn't moved a single piece of furniture. That's the quiet power of breath. It doesn't demand change, it supports it. But only if you allow it in. Some people light candles, some people burn sage, others pray. All these practices have merit. But sometimes the most spiritual act is simply letting air move. What's blocking your airflow? Often it's not just the windows, it's habits. Hanging wet laundry indoors, letting dust settle in corners, using strong artificial scents that mask rather than cleanse. Even mental clutter shows up in the air. It's the atmosphere of a room when too much has been said and nothing has been resolved. In Feng Shui, we say Kai becomes what it moves through. If it moves through stillness and freshness, it brings peace. If it moves through tension and stagnation, it carries that forward. And yet we chase clarity in books, in apps, in morning routines, while forgetting that clarity is a quality of air. If your home isn't breathing clearly, how can your thoughts? If you've ever struggled to finish a project, to find the right words, to even feel awake by noon, check your space. Not your to-do list. This is not about ventilation. It's about vibrancy. A home with moving air feels alive. It hums softly even in silence. It allows emotions to settle, thoughts to flow, and decisions to land with more ease. And the best part? It costs nothing. You don't have to move. You don't need expensive fixes. You need awareness and one open channel. So instead of asking what's wrong with your motivation, ask this. When was the last time your space exhaled? When was the last time it truly inhaled possibility? Because more often than not, what's keeping you from moving forward isn't outside. It's the invisible weight you've allowed to gather slowly, silently, in the very air you live in. And once that shifts, so do you. Breath is not just survival. It's alignment. And a home that breathes with you doesn't just support your life, it expands it. Number 3, plants in the house are thriving and full of life. You don't need to be a botanist to spot bad energy. Just watch your plants. That statement isn't metaphorical, it's deeply practical, because plants don't pretend. They don't perform. They don't stay green just to keep up appearances. They respond honestly, instantly, and without agenda to the energy of the environment around them. In that way, plants are not decor. They are emotional thermometers for your home. And when a plant thrives or wilts, it's rarely just about light and water. It's about whether your space is energetically nurturing or quietly draining. We just talked about airflow, the breath of the home. Now think of plants as the lungs that respond to that breath. They take in what's offered. They absorb the subtle signals most of us have stopped noticing. When the air is clear, when the energy is stable, when the atmosphere is supportive, they grow silently, steadily, with ease. But when that current is off, when the space is anxious, imbalanced, or energetically heavy, even the hardiest houseplants begin to fade. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If even your snake plant, one of the most resilient species out there, begins to wither despite your care, the issue might not be your watering schedule. It might be the vibration of your home. So let's start with a simple but revealing question. How are your plants doing? Are they standing tall, leaves open and reaching? Or do you find yourself constantly replacing one after another, wondering what you're doing wrong? Because I've seen this time and time again, intelligent, mindful homeowners with beautiful setups who can't figure out why their greenery won't survive. They try better soil. They move pots around. They research endlessly. But the solution isn't in more effort. It's in a shift of attention. Plants don't die because we forget to care. They often die because we're caring in the wrong direction, focusing on surface maintenance while ignoring the atmosphere that surrounds them. I remember a family I worked with in Los Angeles. Their apartment was clean, beautifully designed, and full of thoughtful details. But no matter how many times they tried, their indoor plants wouldn't last. They loved plants, really loved them, but the leaves would droop within days. When I walked in, I noticed something subtle. The space looked inviting but felt emotionally cluttered. The air was still. Tension lingered in the corners, not from visible mess but from unspoken stress. There had been frequent arguments in that living room. Long work hours, unprocessed emotions, and an undercurrent of burnout. The plants. They simply absorbed what was already there. And they showed it. Within 2 weeks of making changes to the emotional flow of the space, clearing clutter from forgotten drawers, letting more light in during the early hours, and intentionally creating pockets of quiet, the plants began to bounce back. It wasn't just the plants that started to thrive. So did the people. That's the beauty of greenery in the home. It's both a mirror and a healer. When you give it energy, it reflects growth. When you're out of balance, it gently lets you know. Not through alarms or chaos, but through slow decline, brown edges, dropped leaves, stagnant soil. And if we're paying attention, we can catch that signal early enough to shift the environment for ourselves, too. Now, here's something that might surprise you. Many celebrities, especially those known for their creative flow, keep specific plants in specific parts of their home. Not randomly, but intentionally. One artist I worked with places lush, vibrant greenery near his studio, believing that fresh energy invites inspiration. And sure enough, every plant in that room is thriving, because the space is alive with movement, expression, and purpose. It's not superstition, it's strategy. Plants, when placed with intention, act like quiet amplifiers of whatever energy is already there. But here's where the reverse thinking matters most. What if you're someone who has thriving plants, but still feels personally stuck? What if your space feels good, but your results don't reflect that? The question to ask isn't whether the plants are alive. but whether you are in alignment with the same energy they're receiving. Because just having plants doesn't mean you're absorbing what they are. Sometimes a space is healing, but the person hasn't yet paused long enough to let it in. The presence of green doesn't fix anything, but it does create the conditions for healing if you choose to engage with it. So look again, not at the plant, but through it. What is it telling you? Is it a sign of vibrancy or a subtle cry for balance? Is your space supporting quiet growth or hiding quiet stagnation? Because the truth is, plants never lie. They're the first to show you where energy is flowing and where it's not. And if you're brave enough to see them not just as living objects, but as living feedback, they'll teach you how to listen to your home in ways that walls and windows never could. A thriving plant isn't just beautiful. It's a signpost that your home is alive, aware, and welcoming growth. And if that life starts in a corner with one green leaf, maybe that's exactly where your next chapter begins too. Number 4, the home is always tidy with just the right amount of belongings. Clutter doesn't just take up space, it clogs opportunity. That may seem like a surface-level observation, but it touches something much deeper than appearance. If you've ever walked into a room and immediately felt tense, overwhelmed, or mentally foggy, without knowing why, it likely wasn't the furniture or the paint. It was the invisible weight of unprocessed objects. You see, clutter is not about mess. It's about memory, resistance, and hesitation. It gathers not because we lack discipline, but because we struggle to let go. And in Feng Shui, the energy of your space reflects the clarity of your choices. A cluttered room is not just a visual distraction. It's an energetic message that you're holding onto what no longer serves you. And when too much of that builds up, life has no room to move forward. We just looked at how plants show us the health of our environment. But what happens when that environment is suffocated, not by what's dying, but by what's simply too much? Think about this. We don't trip over space. We trip over the things we refuse to release. In my work, I visited homes that were stunning on the surface, perfectly styled with expensive details, but still somehow felt emotionally heavy. That heaviness didn't come from poor taste. It came from the unspoken stories stored in overfilled closets, drawers that hadn't been opened in years, and boxes tucked under beds with items that hadn't been touched since a different chapter of life. Most people don't realize that these neglected zones aren't passive. They're active. They hold still energy, and still energy eventually turns into stagnation. Here's where it becomes even more revealing. When energy can't move in your home, it also can't move in your finances, your emotions, or your sense of direction. During a home audit with a high-income couple in New York, they confided in me that while they earned well, they never seemed to retain their wealth. Every month felt like starting over. Their main living areas were spotless, but their hallway closets were crammed. Their attic was untouched for over a decade, and their kitchen drawers held tools from 3 apartments ago. Together, we didn't redesign their space. We simply cleared it with awareness. No dramatic renovations, just a systematic, honest letting go. Within a few weeks, they called to say something had shifted. Not only did they feel lighter, but unexpected checks arrived. New opportunities followed. Did the physical act of cleaning do that? Maybe not directly, but the energetic release absolutely made space for change to enter. So the question becomes, what are you making space for? And more importantly, what are you refusing to release that has already completed its purpose? Because clutter is not always chaos. Sometimes it's neat. Sometimes it's hidden. Sometimes it's emotional. The bookshelf filled with unread books from 5 years ago. The cabinet filled with perfectly stacked but unused gadgets. The storage bin full of clothes that no longer fit your life, your identity, or your future. These items may look harmless, but they carry weight. They represent a version of you that no longer fits, and the longer they remain, the more they anchor your space in an outdated frequency. If energy is like water, then clutter is the dam that holds it back. And while dams can store, they can also prevent flow when we need it most. But here's something you might not have considered. What if the reason you're tired isn't just your schedule, but the silent pressure of visual noise? What if the reason your home doesn't feel peaceful isn't because it lacks comfort, but because it lacks permission to breathe? Too much furniture, too many decorations, too many reminders of things undone. All of them add layers to your mental and emotional load. And sometimes we chase peace through meditation, therapy, or retreats, while the real blockage is sitting right under our coffee table, or under our bed, or in that drawer we never open. You don't need minimalism. You need meaningful presence, a space that reflects who you are now, not who you were or who you think you should be. Feng Shui doesn't demand empty rooms, it asks for intentionality. Can you look at every object and say, "This supports the life I'm building"? If not, then perhaps that item isn't neutral, it's noise. And noise, when unexamined, becomes friction. Over time, that friction shows up as lost focus, scattered energy, unfinished goals, or even low-level anxiety that never seems to leave. So let's flip the script for a moment. What if tidying up isn't about discipline, but about freedom? What if letting go of the excess isn't loss, but alignment? And what if the clearest sign of an abundant home isn't how much it holds, but how gently it holds only what matters? The goal isn't perfection, it's energy flow. It's making sure that what surrounds you supports, not distracts from, what you're here to become. In every home I've worked with, the transformation never starts in the main room. It starts in the forgotten zones, under the bed, behind the door, deep inside the cabinets. That's where energy sleeps. That's where wealth often hides. And that's where renewal begins, not by adding more, but by quietly choosing less with more awareness. Number 5, gentle sounds. Wind chimes, bird song, flowing water. If your home is always quiet, it might be too quiet. That sounds contradictory in a world that craves peace, but it holds a deeper truth. Because there's a kind of silence that soothes and another kind that suffocates. One invites awareness, the other builds stagnation. If the previous section helped us reflect on the weight of physical clutter, then now we shift into something even more subtle, the energy that moves through sound, or the lack of it. When a home is overly silent, with no gentle vibration moving through its walls or windows, it can start to feel emotionally disconnected, not calm but closed, not still but stuck. In Feng Shui, sound is not noise, it's vibration. And vibration is the heartbeat of Kai. The spaces that feel alive are rarely loud, but they're rarely lifeless either. They carry a hum, a current, a sense that energy is moving even when no one is speaking. And this movement is what keeps the environment emotionally and spiritually hydrated. You can feel it when you walk into a home with a soft breeze that makes the curtains rustle, or the distant tinkling of a wind chime at the window. You feel welcomed, not in words, but in rhythm. Something in the space is breathing. You just walked into a place that listens, and you notice, so does your nervous system. What we often miss is that silence, when not filled with intention, becomes static. It holds unresolved emotions, replays tension, and reinforces patterns of detachment. This is especially common in homes where people live alone or where routines have become mechanical. Without sound, gentle, ambient living sound, the space stops engaging with you. It's like living with a still pond that never ripples. Over time, the energy becomes dense, dull, and energetically tired. Have you ever sat in a beautiful room and felt restless for no reason? Look around, there may be nothing wrong, but nothing is moving either. And that's the problem. Now here's the subtle shift that makes all the difference. Introducing soft, natural sound isn't just about atmosphere, it's about alignment. The gentle ring of a wind chime, the chirping of birds through a cracked window, the flowing of water in a small indoor fountain. These aren't just pleasant touches. They are signals. They tell energy, you are welcome here and you are free to move. And when energy moves, so does life. So does creativity. So does clarity. That's why many high-level executives and creative professionals use soundscaping in their homes, not for background ambience, but as an energetic stimulant. They understand that sound shapes focus, rhythm, and flow. A humming space supports a humming mind. Let's take that further. In homes where children seem anxious, couples argue frequently, or sleep feels shallow, it's not uncommon to find long stretches of silence interrupted only by screens. No birds, no wind, no water, no natural resonance. What fills the void then? Noise, TV, phones, sudden outbursts, but none of these offer balance, they just fill the gap. Whereas gentle sounds act like acupuncture for space. They don't distract, they harmonize. A small chime in the hallway can quietly disperse stuck energy. A water feature in the corner can soften hard emotional corners. Even just opening a window to let in bird song can shift the mood of the room without a single word being spoken. So here's something to reflect on. What does your home sound like when no one's talking? Does it feel alive or asleep? Does it hum gently or has it gone flat? It's not a matter of preference, it's a matter of health. Not just physical health, but energetic health. In the same way that a stagnant river grows murky, a silent home without flow begins to gather stillness in a way that feels more like pause than peace. And here's the inverse thought. What if you think your home feels peaceful, but it's actually numb? What if the quiet you've grown used to is no longer healing, but hiding? These are subtle differences, and they require more than logic. They require sensing. Because a quiet home isn't always a calm one. Sometimes it's a space that has stopped participating in life. And once you realize that, you begin to see how something as small as a chime or a soft fountain isn't about sound. It's about reconnection. It reactivates your home's nervous system, and in turn, yours. Homes that hum gently are homes that breathe. And homes that breathe invite you to do the same, more deeply, more consciously, more alive. Whether that breath comes in through rustling leaves, distant bird calls, or the soft tinkling of metal in the breeze, it all serves one purpose: to keep the energy moving. And when energy moves, life does too, not through effort, through frequency, through sound, through subtle invitations to wake up. So maybe the quietest shifts of all are the ones that ripple the furthest, like a bell that doesn't just ring into the room, but quietly rings you back to presence. Number 6. The kitchen is settled, hidden from view, with good lighting and kept clean where your food is made, your fortune is brewed. That isn't just poetic. It's practical, grounded, and consistently true across every home I've ever stepped into. If the front door is the mouth of the home, then the kitchen is its digestive center, the place where raw potential is transformed into nourishment, where energy becomes strength, and where attention either builds prosperity or slowly lets it slip away. We've followed the flow of light, breath, greenery, and sound throughout the home. But now we arrive at the space where energy is not just welcomed, but cooked into something tangible. And if you've never thought of your kitchen this way, now is the time to see it for what it really is: a silent power center hiding in plain sight. The kitchen isn't just functional, it's foundational. And yet, it's often treated as an afterthought. People upgrade countertops, chase sleek designs, or cram in more appliances, yet ignore the most important part: energetic structure. When a kitchen is overexposed, meaning you can see it from the main door or it sits directly in the line of sight as you walk in, the energy that enters the home doesn't have a chance to settle. It flows in fast, hits the stove, and rushes out. In Feng Shui, this is a classic example of wealth that can't stay, not because it wasn't earned, but because it wasn't contained. And this explains something many people experience but can't name: the feeling of working hard but never quite getting ahead. Could the reason be architectural, not personal? I visited homes where everything looked fine on the surface, but the energy never felt grounded. Families felt scattered, meals were rushed, conversations in the kitchen were either tense or non-existent. And in almost every case, the kitchen was too visible, too chaotic, or too dim. Energy doesn't build in exposure. It builds in safety, in rhythm, in subtle containment. That's why the ideal kitchen is settled, not hidden away in darkness, but gently tucked out of the immediate path of the home's incoming energy. When the stove is out of sight from the front entrance, you're symbolically protecting your resources, giving them a chance to develop before being seen or spent. And then there's light, not just any light, warm light. A kitchen bathed in soft, golden illumination feels like dusk on an old farm, like shared stories at the end of a long day. It doesn't demand attention, but it invites it. This kind of light holds memory. It's where meals carry more than calories, they carry care. A harsh, sterile light strips the space of comfort. But a kitchen that glows with warmth, even if it's small or simple, becomes the emotional hearth of the home, where people linger longer, where the air is more forgiving, where the energy feels fuller even when the fridge doesn't. Cleanliness, then, is not just hygiene, it's intention. Every crumb, every smear, every pile of dishes left overnight, these are not just visual distractions, they are energy leaks. The stove especially holds symbolic weight. It is the fire where transformation occurs. And when it's neglected, greasy, or ignored, it reflects a deeper disconnection from the flow of nourishment and prosperity. I've seen families turn their fortune around not by earning more, but by treating their kitchen with reverence. One family I worked with began wiping their stovetop every night before bed, not as a chore, but as a quiet ritual. Within weeks, they didn't just feel more grounded. They received unexpected support, job offers, and more harmony at dinner. Coincidence? Perhaps. But energy builds where attention lives. And when that attention is focused on the very place that feeds you, the effects ripple far beyond the table. Let's pause here and ask something that may feel simple but is worth examining deeply. What's the emotional tone of your kitchen? Does it feel like a place of warmth or a zone of tension? Is it treated like a sanctuary or just a functional pit stop? Is it clean because it has to be, or because you understand that a clean stove is not just about food, it's about focus? And here's something most people overlook. How do you feel when you stand at your stove? Rushed, resentful, relaxed. That emotional state infuses not just the meal, but the energy of the entire home. A distracted cook feeds more than the body. And a mindful cook, even with simple ingredients, can raise the vibration of a whole family. So perhaps the deeper wisdom here is not to treat your kitchen as a tool, but as a temple. Not in a religious sense, but in an energetic one. Because this is the space where fire lives. And fire in any tradition is the element of transformation, illumination, and willpower. It's where change begins. And when that fire is cared for, protected, honored, and kept clean, it stops being a source of stress and becomes a source of strength. A well-settled kitchen doesn't shout for attention. It simply does its work in the background like a strong heart, quiet, steady, essential. And when it's aligned, everything else in the home starts to make more sense. Conversations soften, sleep deepens, money feels easier to hold onto. Why? Because when the center is strong, the structure doesn't wobble. Not emotionally, not financially, not energetically. So maybe fortune isn't brewed in the marketplace or the boardroom. It's brewed right here, one mindful stir, one cleared counter, one quiet flame at a time. Number 7. The house has a supportive backing and an open front. The best homes don't just face opportunity, they rest on support. In the world of structure, whether it's a house, a bridge, or a human being, what's behind you matters just as much as what's ahead. And yet this is one of the most consistently overlooked principles in home design and energy alignment. We often focus on what we can see, the entryway, the windows, the path forward, but rarely do we stop to ask, what's holding it all up? What's protecting this place quietly from behind? In Feng Shui, this concept is not just visual, it's energetic. A home with a solid, supportive backing doesn't just feel more secure. It naturally gathers energy, holds it longer, and transforms it into a lasting sense of rootedness. Picture your home like a person. If it's standing upright but leaning forward, always exposed, always on alert, always trying to keep balance without anything behind it to catch its breath, how long can it truly hold itself up? This is exactly what happens in homes that are placed with no natural or built support at the rear. Whether it's a steep drop, a street that curves away too fast, or just open emptiness, that lack of backing creates an energetic imbalance. The house may look fine, but its foundation doesn't feel grounded. And over time, that imbalance often shows up in the lives of the people living inside. Difficulty staying focused, restlessness, inconsistent luck, or a persistent feeling of vulnerability they can't quite explain. Support doesn't always have to mean mountains. It can be as simple as a sturdy wall, a row of tall hedges, a gentle slope, or even a neighboring building. The idea is not to trap the house, but to give it a spine, a quiet strength that allows the energy inside to settle rather than scatter. In practical terms, this means the back of the house should feel embraced, not pressed, not crushed, but gently held. It's the difference between standing on your own in the middle of a field and standing with your back to a tree. The same space in front of you feels completely different when your back is supported. And that emotional posture, safe, upright, stable, is exactly what good Feng Shui invites into your daily life. Now let's move to the front of the house. If the back represents security, the front represents vision, intention, opportunity, direction. A clear front yard, free of heavy obstructions like large trees, oversized walls, or chaotic intersections, allows energy to flow in easily. It doesn't just make the space feel open. It gives the mind permission to focus, to dream, to look forward without friction. This is what we call in Feng Shui the bright hall, an open space that allows light, air, and luck to move toward you without being blocked, deflected, or splintered. But when the front is cluttered, blocked, or exposed to rushing traffic, such as a road pointing directly at the home, it creates what we refer to as agitated or piercing Kai. The energy comes in too fast, without time to settle, and instead of entering gracefully, it crashes into the home, creating a sense of unease or chaos. People who live in such placements often report feeling constantly on, anxious, or fatigued, as if life is always throwing something at them. Not because their life is harder, but because their environment is pushing energy toward them in ways they can't process or absorb. So here's the deeper question. Does your home feel held and guided? Or does it feel exposed and pulled in different directions, Because placement is not just about property value or curb appeal. It's about energetic posture. A house that's backed by stability and opens into clarity behaves very differently from one that's spinning in tension, constantly catching energy it can't hold and releasing energy it needs to keep. One client I worked with had a stunning house, modern, full of glass, beautifully furnished, but it sat on a sharp incline with no support behind it and a T-junction road aiming straight at the front. It wasn't just the home that felt unsteady. The family inside, despite their achievements, always felt like they were bracing themselves for work stress, health issues, unexpected setbacks. They were never still, always adjusting. Once we identified the structural imbalance and added both natural and symbolic support to the back, layered hedges, earth tones, and rearranged rooms to anchor their energy, the shift was noticeable. They weren't just less reactive. They started feeling more at home in their own lives. Think of it like this. When a home has a strong back and an open front, it becomes a vessel that both receives and protects. It doesn't leak, it doesn't chase, it doesn't get overwhelmed. It sits with confidence. It collects good fortune slowly, consistently, and holds it until it's needed. And that kind of home doesn't just help you grow, it helps you last. So take a quiet moment and ask yourself, not as a homeowner, but as someone seeking alignment, does my home stand with dignity? Does it have my back when I need to rest? Does it face the future without fear? Because sometimes, stability doesn't come from what's new or big or bold. It comes from what's quietly behind you and how clearly you can see the road ahead. Section 2. Recognizing red flags that quietly drain wealth. Some homes look perfect on the surface, clean lines, bright interiors, charming layouts, but they carry a weight you can't photograph. And that weight, if ignored, quietly settles into your mind, your body, and your decisions. Because not all beautiful homes are safe homes. Beauty doesn't equal balance, and design doesn't guarantee energy. This final section isn't about what draws you in, it's about what quietly holds you down. We've explored how energy enters, moves, breathes, and supports. But now we must ask, what blocks it, distorts it, or quietly sends it away without a sound? These are the hidden disruptors, often invisible to the eye but deeply felt in the body. And unless they are recognized, even the most promising space can slowly drain your potential. 1. Abandoned homes. Long empty spaces equals deep yin buildup. Not haunted, just energetically asleep. A house that hasn't been lived in for years doesn't just gather dust, it gathers stillness. Stillness that crosses from quiet into stagnation. People often believe the absence of life means neutrality, but in Feng Shui, absence creates an energetic vacuum. Without breath, fire, sound, or motion, a house doesn't pause, it begins to shut down. And when you walk into a long empty space, you may feel it before you see it. The air seems thick, time feels slow. There's no warmth, not even in the sunlight. This isn't about spirits. It's about structure that hasn't been activated. Before you move in, such a space must be awakened, softly, gently, with intention. Burn herbs, open windows. Light candles, let music play, let laughter echo. Energy must be invited back, not assumed to return. 2. History of misfortune. Bankruptcy, divorce, legal trouble. These leave energetic fingerprints. Every word, every conflict, every loss experienced inside a home leaves an imprint. And just like a sponge absorbs water, walls absorb emotion. Even if the home has been renovated, deep emotional residue lingers. I've seen homes that were physically pristine, but the moment you stepped inside, something felt tight. Not threatening, just unresolved. This is called residual chi. And if not cleared, it weighs down the new inhabitants with emotions that aren't even theirs. The new owner may feel drained, anxious, or disconnected, and not know why. Before stepping into a home with a troubled past, ask not just what it looks like, but what it has lived through. Because the story of a home doesn't end with its last owner. It continues with you, unless you rewrite it first. 3 bad location: cemeteries, power stations, or sharp road intersections. Heavy yin areas or locations with fast, erratic kai flows erode your calm. A home doesn't exist in isolation. Its surroundings feed its energy. Cemeteries, while quiet, radiate a slow, heavy yin that may feel grounding to some, but suffocating to others, not because of fear, but because of emotional density. Meanwhile, power stations and towers emit frequencies that conflict with natural energy rhythms. They stimulate the nervous system in unpredictable ways, often leading to fatigue, restlessness, or mental fog. Then there are homes placed at the end of a T-junction or facing an oncoming road. These homes receive energy like a punch instead of a breeze, too fast, too focused, too direct. You may feel rushed even when you're resting. The house doesn't hold peace, it processes constant impact. In every case, the placement overwhelms rather than supports, and no amount of decorating can mask that. 4. Feeling heavy upon entering. Your body knows before your brain does. If you enter and feel off, don't ignore it. This is the most instinctual form of Feng Shui, intuition. It's the slight tension in your chest, the sudden pause in your breath, that subtle urge to turn around even though nothing bad has happened. Sometimes no is a gift, a quiet warning from the body that something isn't aligned, even if everything appears perfect. I always remind clients, if you walk into a space and feel heavy, disconnected, or just not at ease, it's not your imagination. It's your awareness doing its job before logic tries to explain it away. Energy doesn't need evidence, it just needs presence. 5 mirrors facing each other or the front door. Reflective chaos. Mirrors should direct energy within, not bounce it out endlessly. A well-placed mirror expands light, doubles warmth, and invites flow. But a misplaced mirror does the opposite. When 2 mirrors face each other, they create a loop, endless, spinning, unsettled. The eye sees a few layers. Energy feels infinite movement with no direction. This type of arrangement often leads to scattered thoughts, poor concentration, and even insomnia. On a deeper level, it creates a space where energy never lands, it just spins. Worse still are mirrors facing the front door. The moment wealth energy enters, it's reflected right back out. You may earn, attract, and build, only to see it slip away. It's not a coincidence. It's a design flaw that sends fortune away before it even gets a chance to settle. So now comes the honest question. How does your home feel when no one is watching? Not how it looks in the daylight, not how it photographs, but how it holds you. Does it feel awake? Or is it asleep under years of stillness? Does it support your clarity? Or confuse your senses with energetic noise? Does it welcome wealth? Or reflect it away with every unexamined mirror, misaligned corner, or unresolved memory in the walls? Because beauty alone is not safety, size is not stability, and location is not alignment. A home must be more than what it offers on paper. It must feel like a place where your breath deepens, your thoughts settle, and your energy stays longer than just the weekend. And when it doesn't, no matter how perfect the price or the pictures, it might not be a blessing. It might be a warning wrapped in elegance. And learning to see the difference might be the most valuable real estate decision you ever make. Final, don't just buy a home, build a destiny. A wealthy home isn't about what's inside the walls, it's about what moves through them. That single shift in perspective is where true alignment begins. Because in the end, it's not the square footage, the granite counters, or the perfect location that shapes your future. It's the way energy enters, moves, settles, and supports your life silently, day after day. And yet that's what most people overlook. We obsess over prices, floor plans, and trendy finishes, but forget to ask the most human question of all. Does this space feel like it's on my side? If we're honest, most of us have lived in spaces that drained us, not because they were flawed by design, but because the energy was blocked, stale, or quietly out of sync. These are the homes where the front door was cluttered, the air felt thick, the plants kept dying, the drawers overflowed, the rooms echoed with silence instead of movement. These are the kitchens that felt exposed and untended, the spaces with no spine behind them and no vision in front. And yet these patterns are common, not because we lack awareness, but because we were never taught to see our environment as alive. We were taught to decorate, not to listen, to renovate, not to recalibrate. So here's the collective pattern most people fall into. They try to change their lives without ever changing how their home holds them. They look for luck, clarity, or peace externally, while sleeping beside blocked windows, cooking in chaotic kitchens, and storing years of emotional weight in forgotten corners. But a space that's never given attention doesn't return support. Energy doesn't flow by accident. It flows by invitation. And that invitation begins in the smallest places, opening a window, moving a shoe rack, wiping the stove not just to clean, but to claim. Because the most powerful renovations aren't made of wood or concrete. They're made of intention, ritual, and clarity. You don't need a new address. You need a new relationship with the space you already live in. Start where you are. Start with what you see every day but stopped noticing. And when you shift the energy, you shift the story. And when the story changes, so does your fate. So ask yourself now, gently and honestly, is your home just where you live, or is it part of what's holding you back? Or better yet, could it become the quiet ally that finally helps you move forward, not through force, but through flow? That's the question only you can answer. But once you do, you'll never walk through your own door the same way again.